not exactly at the same time, but the same conference, Farad Murad, the guy that discovered nitric oxide. I've got a lot of slides, and since I'm used to teaching doctors all over the world, over 10,000 hours worth, 6 different continents, just not Antarctica yet. One thing that I can tell you is doctors actually want proof. They don't really care about opinion. They want indisputable facts. And some of the greatest thinkers of all time, we can go back to Aristotle, we can go back to Socrates, we can bring in modern day, we can go Steve Jobs, we can go Elon Musk, we can even go Tom Bilyeu, the guy that created impact theory and Quest Nutrition. He said if you want to succeed in life, you really need to understand first principles. What are the fundamentals of absolutely everything? So Einstein was a pretty sharp character. Can we agree on that? And they asked Einstein back then, my gosh, what in the world is it like being the smartest guy in the world? Anybody know Einstein's answer? Gosh, I don't know, ask Tesla. That was Einstein's answer. Do you want to know what it's like being the smartest man in the world? I don't know, you gotta ask Tesla. So everything boils down to frequency, energy, and vibration. Jason said something in a way I hadn't heard. Thank you for turning on the light for me. The thought and the word are only different in terms of amplitude and frequency and delivery, but they are all the same vibration. So I'm going to call your attention to the screen real quick. I'm an educator all over the world, treated world champions from every major professional sport, and I've seen the other end of the spectrum. That is the same foot. That foot was going to be amputated 2 days from the day that picture was taken. What do you think the cellular charge was like in that foot? Almost down to nothing, right? Negative 90 millivolts is the ideal charge of a cell. By negative 70, it's certainly weaker. By negative 50, the cell can barely function. By negative 30, it has a choice, die or mutate. And if you're alive, what are you going to say? Gee, I think I'll die? No, you're going to mutate. And that cancer is a very bad animal. We statistically get about 500 to 1,000 cancer cells every single day. So it's all about energies. This happens to be something that I really resonate with. So everybody that was standing on that stage, they said, well, we've got 7. I counted 10 amazing people on that stage, and they all brighten the room when they walk in. So there's 2 types of people in the world. Those that the room gets brighter when they enter, those that the room gets brighter when they leave. Don't be that second person. So oddly enough, I didn't know Murray's story. God bless his amazing soul. Something amazing came out of that. But we go back to 2004. Anytime I type in a PubMed ID, you'll see that number there. And what do they use in 2004? Disruption of cancer cell replicating by alternating electric fields. We are electric. Our cells have charge. Cancer cells have horrible charge. Now, I'm going to explain this slightly different than Jason did, even though I really love the way he did it. I don't know if I have a marker. Maybe I'll just use my direction here. So the way energy was explained to me, healthy energy is a very smooth waveform, whereas sick energy, you didn't have any rhythmicity to that chaotic energy, even though there's no doubt that it was accurate. But this is healthy energy, very, very smooth. And there is constructive addition to that energy. Someone comes in you resonate with, you're on the same frequency, you're on the same mission, and your energies add together to create a wave which is bigger and more powerful and more impactful. But sick energy is chaotic. It still has a frequency to it. When the energy is like that, we actually put in the inverse waveform of that. And they cancel to zero. And what Einstein will tell you, this is not philosophy, this is physics, and it's indisputable. So when we're talking about energy healing, anything that's structural is kinetic energy. Anything that's nutrition is biochemical energy. Acupuncture, well, we use traditional Chinese medicine, that could be biochemical energy, it could be qi, that electromagnetic energy that is infinite, that permeates everything that we don't begin to know about. But now I'm going to go to this study, and what they showed was this energy actually killing the cancer cells, and then the most destructive brain tumor is called glioblastoma, and they finally proved in 2018 to put people electrodes on their head because they had nothing else to do with this glioblastoma. And again, I'll go back to Jason. If you're going to drop a nuclear bomb on yourself, that probably shouldn't be the first option. What if you just put in a frequency that the cancer couldn't survive in? What if you created a cellular charge that it couldn't thrive in? What if you would create an alkaline environment? 7.0 is neutral, but the pH of blood is 7.35 to 7.40, very tight window, it's alkaline. Every bioenergetic process makes acid. Oxygen goes into the cell, carbon dioxide comes out, carbon dioxide adds the water to blood to form carbonic acid. 100 trillion cells a trillion times a day. So we're always making acid. And then oxygen, well, hey, look, the atmosphere is 21% oxygen, right? We don't live on 100%. We need to balance that. We need to balance oxygen, antioxidants, but we need to dilate blood vessels. We need to have nitric oxide to bring the oxygen to the tissue. I got a YouTube. You can find my channel. I did a cancer update 3 times. I've lectured at the International Nutrition and Cancer Conference. The cover slide I used was killing cancer with energy. But I'm going to talk about all of the energies that are out there. And I like the 5 that they have listed, but I'm a 7s guy. For years, I've taught the Magnificent 7. You've got to eat right, drink right, think right, move right, sleep right, poop right, talk right, every single day. We're mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, social, financial, impactful beings. And when we start talking about therapies, bodies respond to frequency, duration, intensity, quality, and time of stimuli. So don't expect to go to Divinity Wellness once and change your life forever. In fact, I would suggest if they sell a big package, buy it, use it, commit a month or a quarter or whatever time, and your life will be different. I don't know if you start out so big in a hole that you won't notice much of a difference, but I promise you, if you're consistent, it would be almost impossible to not feel a difference. There's your stat. Every human being, 500 to 1,000 cancer cells every day. We must weed our garden. And there's a lot of factors that determine genetic repair. Since I teach doctors, a lot of people have heard of the BRCA gene, Angelina Jolie, double mastectomy, hysterectomy. Why? Because her mother got cancer. The BRCA gene's been in the genome for at least 60 million years. So why in the world are so many women getting cancer now? It's not the genes. You can go to the medical literature. Genes are at most 5 to 10% of what people are manifesting. P53 is called the guardian of the genome. NIH knocked out P53 in mice in the 1990s, and guess what? 100% of them got cancer. Now, for the real bad news, the SARS-CoV spike protein inhibits P53. So we're seeing horrible cancers in younger and younger people. So everybody needs to do, in my opinion, a spike protein detox. Maybe that's not accurate. Now they can test for circulating volume of spike protein in the blood. US has a test, LabCorp, $80 is my cost. I don't know what that is here in Canada, probably like $1.25 if you can get it, right? No, there's a difference in price, right? But we can clear this spike protein from the system. I want to talk about cancer for just a moment because it really piggybacks exactly what Jason was talking about. I was at a cancer lecture 35 years ago. PhD researcher Dean Black walks into a room with 200 doctors, and he asked the question, how does a hurricane start? And the answer he wanted was, a hurricane starts when conditions are just right. How does tornado start? When conditions are just right. How does cancer start? When conditions are just right. And then we can go back to this. How does cancer go away? A nuclear bomb, chemo, radiation, surgery does not take that to that. You must antagonize the toxic energy. You must cancel it. Antagonize can be a really good word. You want to antagonize the toxic. Get it out of your system. The perfect storm of cancer: low oxygen, low nutrients, high acid, chronic inflammation, immune suppression secondary to chronic distress. And by the way, because I like AI and I'm just a nerd that way, I said, by the way, what's the perfect storm of a hurricane? There it is. A hurricane does start when conditions are just right. There's a very recent PubMed that throws in all those things and another factor of actually mechanical compression of blood vessels because it's swollen because of the inflammatory process, because of the toxicity, because of fluid retention, because the cells can't maintain electrical charge. Now a little synergy here. The top superfood on the planet, that which has the best documented injury, is called reishi, also known as Ganoderma lucidum. And it's proven directly against 15 different types of cancer and counting, and it unwinds all of the perfect storm of cancer, and you could get some at the back table. Full disclosure, I'm an investor in that company. I am so invested in the Energy Center, I am considering adding a room to my office because it's so powerful. I see the value of that all the time. By the way, this is not someone's bozo idea. NIH.gov, what does it say? These have been used as adjuncts for conventional cancer therapy for over 30 years. And what does it do? It enhances the killing effect of chemo and radiation while protecting the normal cells. It ought to be standard of care. When we look at these toxins, nearly every condition that we're seeing out there in some way could be related to toxicity. You start looking, they were actually spraying DDT, this forever chemical. Why do they call it forever? It's got a half-life of like 200 years. 200 years from now, half the DDT is still going to be there. Except it's in our tissue, it's in our brain, it's in our kids, it's in our food, it's in our water, it's everywhere. And we're all exposed to so many of these, over 80,000 chemicals in the environment. It's estimated they're responsible for 1/4 of all health challenges. Every human being walking around has at least 700 toxins in their system, 200 at the moment of birth. The symptoms of chronic poisoning, fatigue, sleep disturbance, intestinal distress, allergy symptoms, headaches, confusion, and anxiety. I've said for decades, you take away these symptoms, I would have to do something else for a living. If you just start looking at taking a shower and using personal care, this is just doing surveys of what people use for products. The average female, before she finishes her shower, has already been exposed to over 50 to 80 different toxins, nearly all of which have been banned in most of the world, and we might call that death by 1,000 cuts. So every year, I recommend 1 to 2 intense detox, 7 to 10 days. Jason did it 30, but keep in mind, detox is nutrient dependent, energy dependent, protein dependent. You better have every duck in a row if you want to fast for 30 days, and probably use the energy frequency as well. I like clean, alkaline food that's nutrient dense and gives my body what I need to detox. We're going to talk about coffee for just a moment because we got coffee at the back table there. It turns out that over 80% of the coffee in the world has heavy metals: lead, cadmium, mercury, nickel, tin, arsenic, and these are called metalloestrogens. Over 70% have herbicides, insecticides, fungicides, and over 40% have mold and mycotoxins. So what's the problem what's the probability? Any one cup of coffee, given these stats, 94% probability that any cup of coffee you would ingest would have one or more of those. And when people have problems with coffee, whether it's fatigue, jitters, gut distress, whatever, it may very well be the toxins in the coffee. And want to talk about a habit. Who drinks coffee in the room? Who doesn't drink coffee in the room? Okay, that's a more than average. It's like maybe 15% of the room doesn't. If you don't drink coffee or tea, raise your hand. Okay, we got 2 people. That's pretty remarkable. I would encourage you to do that because I call good coffee turbocharged water, good tea turbocharged water. But the average coffee drinker at 3 cups a day, starting at 18, drinking until their death, is going to drink 66,000 cups. Now, our coffee with Ganoderma in it can clear some of the worst toxins in the history of the planet, things that can induce Parkinson's on a single exposure, neural tube defects, birth defects on a single exposure, liver failure on a single exposure, pancreatic failure on a single exposure. When they give Ganoderma with it, the organs don't fail. Stress could arguably be the #1 killer of all time, and in a prolonged state, it has negativity on every single system, every cell of your body. They estimated in 2021, and these numbers have been standing for decades, somewhere between 75 and 90% of every doctor visit is related to chronic stress. So we're fighting an uphill battle against stress, and we never get ahead of it, unless we have a very precise way of doing it. So I've taught for decades now something called the stress reset. We do melatonin, theanine, Ganoderma spores every waking hour. One will actually prevent the brain drive of stress on the body. The other will actually lower the circulating stress hormones. And the third crosses the blood-brain barrier as a natural GABA facilitator and calms the brain so beautifully. Everything is energy. There's our wonderful mitochondria, 94.4% of human energy. And in the first principles of health, Jason, I don't know if you ever looked at this, number one principle of health is energy. Number two is balance or homeostasis. Number three is raw materials. Number four is the ability to balance stress. Number five, AI said align with your evolutionary design. I don't have any problem saying align with your divine design. And that's what Divinity Wellness is all about. Clearing toxins and then understanding the mind-body connection. But low energy is the first sign of toxicity. It's also a sign of what's known as mitochondrial efficiency. 1/3 of all body energy maintains the charge across the cell membrane. As mitochondria fail, charge fails. What happens as charge fail? A cascade that you do not want. So vitamin L, Jason mentioned 2 vitamin L, but not by name. What did Emoto write on the water? Love. Love might be the best energy in the world. That could be the best vitamin L. The next best vitamin L is going to be light. Someone said, let there be light. Think about that. Way back in the beginning, what's your life like without light? I'm going to suggest you don't have one. You don't have one without light. And by the way, big fan of exercise. When you exercise strong, you actually increase the efficiency of mitochondria. When you exercise long, you increase the number of mitochondria. Strong versus long. So most people are nowhere near running what the level of efficiency they should be. As they start getting pre-diabetes, diabetes, they might be running on less than half cellular energy efficiency. And here's what I tell people. We don't just use energy for singing and dancing. We use it for nutrient absorption, toxin elimination, cellular repair, and energy production through something called the electron transport chain is absolutely micronutrient dependent. When we look at the inflammatory process, they're calling this the unifying theory of chronic disease. It doesn't matter what bad choice you make, as your body becomes intoxicated, as it breaks down, as the energy becomes inefficient, then that inflammatory process starts and it will either burn you up and or burn you out. And here, look at this statistic right here. Chronic inflammation results every single year in a loss of 1 billion quality life years. 1 billion quality life years per year. Ouch, that really sucks. So depending on your predisposition, you're either going to burn up or burn out. Some people have pain, some people have fatigue, some people have both. They are both related to chronic inflammation. And then guess what? Reishi, the mushroom in our coffee, 16 proven anti-inflammatory mechanisms, all of which are health promoting. Finally, the immune system. The immune system needs to be balanced. Too much attack on a foreign invader, that's an allergy. Too much attack on your own cells, that's autoimmunity. Too little defense against a foreign invader, you get infection. Too little defense against your own cells, you get cancer. And guess what? One of the indisputable properties of the Ganoderma, one of the indisputable properties of love, one of the indisputable properties of light is going to be balancing everything and the energy and the immune system. Finally, in terms of hormones, I asked AI, how long can we live without the hormones? And which are we going to die first? Insulin, you only live a couple hours if you don't have that. Cortisol, aldosterone, which by the way is mineral balance, and thyroid, a couple hours. The next, antidiuretic hormone, epinephrine, norepinephrine, you can be dead in weeks. But look at the sex steroids, growth hormone, things like that. You don't need it for individual recovery or survival, but species survival for sure. So many people are so worried when their sex steroids drop. I got to tell you, a lot of things have gone wrong before your sex steroids drop. You know, you have not been paying attention to too many things for too long. So the Magnificent Seven of energy is absolutely epic. Every single month I have it. Ask the doctor if you scan the QR code. Last month we talked about a cancer update. This week we're doing diabetes and body composition. Easy enough to find us. If you look for Dr. Bobrakowski, you'll find me, but you'll also probably find that I'm heavily censored. You know why? I was sharing things that some people that didn't know first principles didn't like, and it was actually costing them money. And they said, you shut up or we'll shut you up. I went, I take that as a threat, and I think I'll be a little less vocal, but not totally silent, right? I'm not going to give up my family or my life to share truth, but truth is coming around. I like it. So I think now we're scheduled for a few minutes of questions with Dr. Jason and myself, and then we have sound healing. Am I right? I call you Dr. Jason. Hey, I'm going to give you an honorary PhD.